Hello, everyone, and welcome to the Pash On Podcast. Let's get started with your host, Brian Pash.
Hi, this is Brian Pash, and welcome to another exciting podcast interview. And I'm excited to have two thought leaders and data experts from Equifax on today's podcast. I have Angelica Jeffries. She is the VP of Automotive Retail and Mobility for Equifax, and Deanna Glenn. She's the Alliance Manager of Partnerships at Equifax, and we're going to dive into the data story. And, well, I hope that you'll learn that Equifax is so much more than just a credit bureau. Ladies, welcome to the podcast.
Thank you, Brian.
Thank you, Brian.
Glad to be here.
Well, I've been writing about first-party data management for a little over a year with the focus on helping dealers realize that their customer data is out of date. It's sitting in the DMS or CRM. It grows wearier and wearier each day because we've never had a first-party data management focus. We've had a first-party data sales strategy, but every day people move. Every day email addresses bounce. Every day cars are sold and the dealer doesn't know about it. And anybody who starts a first-party data management project realize that, wow, their data is dirtier than they ever thought. So, Deanna, you are an expert at this topic, and I want to ask you a question. As dealer groups get more interested in the data access and profiles of consumers you have, and not just the dealers, but their agency partners or integration partners, what are you hearing the most right now in this economy from a demand of data that would kind of set the stage of why you're so excited about serving the automotive vertical?
Well, thank you, Brian, again for having us. And I love this question. What we're really hearing a lot from the partners, whether it's the dealers themselves or the partnerships that we work with that actually help service those dealers, is, to your point, I've got dirty data. How can I do more? How can I provide some of the connected links to really take that digital footprint and that physical footprint and bring that together? Because it's a competitive market out there, and we know that the consumer expectations are super high in terms of the experience that they're looking for. They want it to be seamless, they want it to be personalized, and I'm just a click away. If I'm a dealer, I'm potentially a click away from losing a deal because I'm not getting that experience right, or I'm not showing that consumer that they might look like online that they're a prospect, but maybe they've been hitting my service center for the last few years from a car they bought from me. So I'm being asked a lot about, and so are my peers and Angelica, how can we effectively and accurately navigate all that data out there, that whole data landscape, considering things like privacy, regulation, and successfully be able to take it, activate my tech stack or my CDP, or create some sort of digital audience, and just do that the right way. And I feel like, they know that first party data is there, but how do I clean it up, to your point? How do I find lookalike audiences when people are afraid about the demise of the cookie? And how can I maybe take third-party data and own it to make it my own first-party data? That's really where we're working with partners today to help them solve for some of that, especially since we know we've got right now, when you look at it, there's probably going to be a growth. We know there's already a growth to that online end-to-end experience. I looked at a stat the other day that said potentially up to 20% of all sales for dealerships are going to end up being online in the next, couple of years. So it's really, the time is now to act.
I couldn't agree with you more. There's a lot of noise out there, though. And Angelica, let me pop a question to you. Over the years, you and I have talked, we've worked on dealer data projects, and it always surprises me how much more data, insights, audience building tools that Equifax has than dealers even know about it. Is it still a challenge or a misconception that you get pigeonholed as a credit bureau when, in fact, you could be the dealer's #1 strategic data partner to reconnect with existing customers, to work on retention, to get lapsed service customers back in? When you know how dirty the data is, you're going to need to call on someone for help. Is there some misconceptions out there that you can't help an individual dealer?
Yeah, and I think that's a great point, Brian. I think, just taking a step back a little bit, I think dealers have always considered us their credit bureau provider, and that we can help in understanding the pre-qualifications or qualifications of a consumer to transact. But really, the most important thing out there right now in terms of the issue that consumers and dealers are facing is this whole concept of affordability. And in order to address that, you have to go much further up funnel. And so to your point, what data assets can they use? What can they leverage? We've always been very partner focused, and very partner agnostic in the ecosystem. And so we've really been working to enable a lot of the CDPs out there and a lot of the marketing agencies with our data that is very unique in that area that is not the credit side, the non-regulated side, which is our data-driven marketing solutions. And our capabilities there are really very powerful. And so if there's a dealer out there that wants to leverage our data that is the non-regulated to help solve for that question of affordability, they can access it through agencies, through the platforms, through some of our partners in the ecosystem like the CDPs. And so certainly we want to be accessible and help whatever mechanism and whatever platform the dealer wants to access our data. We want to be there for them.
One of the things that dealers need to know is the difference between actual data and model data, or real data and survey data. And let me just set the context for the dealers who are listening. Affordability, as Angelica mentioned, is really critically important. Some folks who sell, say, their spending power or their share of wallet scores are using data that consumers self-report. Now, we've all seen this. You get a survey and, how much you're making a year, and we call these self-reported data. Yet, what's unique to Equifax is the IXI network, which is an alliance of brokerages and banks and insurance companies that actually model physical assets and wealth to come up with this unique IXI spending power score. Why is that important? Self-modeled data is never accurate, and maybe a very small percentage of a population could be sampled versus the actual data. Deanna, could you talk a little bit more about this power of your data partnerships, not a kind of cornucopia of data from various sources with various levels of integrity?
Absolutely. Thanks, Brian. So you said it right there at the beginning there about real data. And real data does make a difference. It matters all the way in terms of the results you're going to see as well as the performance. So the IXI network, which is my favorite topic, has been around for almost 30 years. And currently we're measuring almost half of all U.S. personal assets. And to your point, it's the real data. We've made sure that it's privacy and consumer friendly. So the data that we receive from those brokerage firms, big national banks, credit unions, and what you were mentioning there, we have almost 100 contributing to it. It's been going on for, like I said, almost 30 years. And the data that comes in is at an account level. So it's actually the dollar value in a checking account, the dollar values with CDs, bonds, mutual funds, deposits, cash, other. And so it's that real data versus that survey data usually you're talking about, which typically those surveys are 1 to 3% of the US population, and they might be conducted every third year. That's what a lot of the competition and other players out there use as their source to understand income and wealth. But we're using that IXI network data. Again, it has no consumer name and address on it, but we're able to take that, again, $28 trillion of US personal assets and model it down to household levels to create unique products such as spending power, affluence index, our proprietary economic cohort segmentation, which is also a really unique offering because it's a offering that looks first at what a consumer's affordability factor is, to Angelica's point, and then it starts layering in things like debt to income ratio, ability to pay, also includes things like, hey, do I have $1 million mortgage? Maybe I'm financially tapped out. So we understand and put people first in clusters related to affordability and economic capacity to spend before then coming in and doing demographics and a bunch of other things that is typically found within a segmentation system. So we, unlike some of the other segmentation systems out there, again, understand affordability and if a consumer can spend with you versus, hey, am I just, a homeowner and I have 2 kids, and it's more of what we call a geodemographic type segmentation. So it really will help dealers and the partners, like I said, that we enable to help those dealers understand where do they need to place their bets, where do they need, what kind of treatment strategy do I need to apply to a group based on their affordability? How can I right size an offer to a consumer higher up in the funnel to make sure that on the back end, whenever we do need to maybe get to that credit check, we're more likely to find success because we understood where they were financially.
And I'll chime in a little bit there too. And Deanna raises a really good point. I think the promise of digital retailing has been interesting. I think, consumers are interested in taking a transaction to a certain level. And I think, we had thought perhaps that would persist as COVID started fading into the background and life got back to normal. But I think the digital retailing, at the front end and penny perfect payments has then been an introduction to the entrance into the brick and mortar process versus replacing it, which is interesting. But the biggest hurdle that we still see is consumers who aren't at the higher end of spectrum on the credit scale are getting stuck, right? And that's been the biggest source of frustration for consumers. If you don't have great credit, you can't transact or can't get very far through that process. And so this concept of bringing the affordability data higher funnel is great, of course, for dealers to understand the debt to income and all of the insights that are derived from that data up funnel. But it also makes for such a much better experience for consumers so that they don't get to that pre-qualification process or transaction and find out that they're just nowhere near where they thought they were in their ability to purchase a car. So it really does help bring a much more personalized experience sooner. And that's, I think, the other big topic in the industry right now, personalization, and how you can use data to address the Amazonification that consumers are demanding of the car shopping process today.
One of the things I want to bring up, and Deanna, I'm glad you mentioned, the privacy compliant modeling, identifying households, spending power. One of the cool things that I've been doing this year is working with the cable providers using clean rooms. So getting, for example, a list from Equifax of people with a certain level of spending power. Equifax, using a clean room, can provide those households, match them up to households, say in Spectrum Reach. And then here's the cool thing, model exactly what those homes are watching, which is very interesting because dealers traditionally, when they're trying to do OTT, they are not always clear on, hey, should I be buying sports or news, or should I be buying certain programs? But as we move closer, Deanna, I don't know if we want to talk about it. At one time, dealers thought that household data wasn't that powerful, but now with smart TVs and streaming, that household data that you have, the affordability and other score, mapped to a video platform like Effective or Spectrum or Cox, can actually now say, wow, I can have data-informed video strategies that powers my message, changes the content to reach those type of households. I think it's a new era of using Equifax household data for anybody who believes in streaming.
Absolutely. I'm glad you brought that up, Brian, because yeah, I think again, the data that we have here could absolutely be enriched or applied or augmented with the data on those platforms for streaming services. And we have a identity graph that can help in some of that matching effort. Again, it's a national level grid that's pre-packed with that eyesight, those data affordability, our income 360 complete, the spending power, economic cohort, so that then those dealers could understand who's in their market area, who's more likely to spend. So they're placing those targeted ads where they need to be and where the eyeballs are. And we do the same thing with some of our addressable TV partners, right? So again, if you're with, and I can say the names because they're on our brochures, like with whether it's DirecTV or Roku or it's Cablevision, we're on some of that and some of the various media, or excuse me, the mobile platforms like TapAd, where our data is already available and you can actually see through the lens of the eyesight data which of those subscribers might be, again, more in market and have the affordability factor.
Well, that's what I'm talking about, is that I don't think dealers realize the deep partnership that Equifax has to really revolutionize an OTT or streaming strategy. And one other element I'd like to talk about, and Angelica, maybe you can jump in on this one. There are a lot of people that sell some type of buyer propensity score or in-market shopper score or active shopper score. And, it's really difficult to evaluate, is Google's in-market shopper list or is Meta's in-market shopper list. Yet Equifax, through all its partnerships, also has specific audiences that are designed for automotive retail. Can we talk about the quality of that? How would you describe to a dealer who wanted, say, a conquest campaign, and he's like, I need to know who's out in market shopping right now. For example, right now, Stellantis is one of the few brands that has a lot of extra inventory compared to their peers. They may want to go in market and conquest. They could come to Equifax and say, give me your market propensity score for auto buyers. How is that built? And why do you feel comfortable in challenging dealers to testing your audiences over, say, some of the generic out-of-the-box ones that may be part of their Google or Meta platform?
Yeah, and I think that's a great question. I think there are a lot of data elements that go into our in-market scores. I think one of the most powerful, Brian, is that we're able to see the trade lines in a consumer's credit history, and we can see how far along they are in terms of repayment of a loan or release. And of course, that's just one attribute, but that's an easy one to be able to suggest, hey, we know when they're coming out of their loan and likely going to be in market. One of the other signals that we have comes from our company that we acquired just a couple of years ago called Count. Count is a very vast network of consumer shopping behavior that we can essentially see where consumers are shopping, what they're putting in their shopping cart, what kinds of transactions are they occurring? Are they servicing their cart at certain places? So we've got lots of signals that come through that network, as well as just another component of what are the various actions that consumers are taking. And so when you tie that in with affordability, ability to pay, their likely credit profile, it really does make for a very robust, precise, right time offer that can be made to those consumers based on that data.
Yeah, and I was just going to add on to what Angelica said there. The auto end market propensity model that we specifically built, obviously for auto, it, as Angelica says, looks at that trade line data to understand the behavior. Something that the group here, we've got some great DNA folks that have studied consumer behavior with their credit to understand the timing of all that when they're going to buy. And we leveraged over 1,000 attributes to build our model, including some from the IXI data suite, to come up with something completely unique that outperforms other market competitors. So we have an OEM that's actually leveraging some of that today as a part of their conquest campaigns. And we, like to what Angelica said earlier on, the data speaks for itself. And so we're always open to have conversation and testing to let people take a look and do retro analysis to understand how the data really is different. So we're just not saying it, you get to see it.
Deanna, question for you. I do have a lot of marketing professionals who listen into my podcast. And, marketing professionals are really in a tight spot right now. Consumers, when they are getting their new lease prices on the same vehicle 3 years later, are seeing a few $100 more in payment. There's a lot of sticker shock going on with the higher rates. And so marketing professionals need some magic, something to pull the rabbit out of the hat. So what would you recommend for a marketer who's looking for a new strategy, a new idea, a new tool? How would you partner with those marketers to do something better today?
Yeah, it's some of the challenges and the problems that are common for marketers and advertisers hasn't really changed any in the last, probably 10, 20 years. And that's going back to, I don't know how to really quantify the effectiveness of my spend. And usually that's on 50% or more of their investments they're making, right? So that really kind of comes down to having a really in-depth knowledge and understanding of how identity resolution and matching and all that's occurring in that ecosystem, to the point of, we know that the more hops, skips, and jumps you take from matching a name and address to get to an ID, to get to a link, to get to a platform, it waters down the results. And so, they're trying to be able to quantify that back end to keep their budget and to also show effectiveness in terms of sales conversion, but they really can't do it when everything's so sloppy out there. And it's not the fault of the marketers and the advertisers that things are sloppy. It's just the ecosystem itself doesn't really lend well to having something that's clean and easy and less what I call hop, skips, and jumps. So what we've done is we've really been working with some of those marketers and advertisers to really kind of cut out some of that middle work. And we are doing a lot of data pushes where we say, hey, take this data, this marketing and identity graph that has historical data on Brian's addresses, his physical footprint, his digital footprint, phones and emails, again, pre-packed with the IXI data, so that you can then take that third-party audience, you license it, it becomes your first-party audience, and then you're able to create audiences and slice them based on affordability, that in-market score we talked about earlier, and really drive home and understand and be able to support back-end attribution much more accurately. You can even use the data to contribute to something like UID 2.0. So it's a great way for marketers that want to really kind of take hold of the data and not be as reliant on platforms and partnerships to try to get everything stitched together for them, so that they can see the true value of the programs and the things that they're spending a whole lot of money on.
And I'll add there too, really the shift to focus on the lifetime value of consumers and the ability to do so, right? I mean, we live in a world at Equifax where we've been doing portfolio analysis and for our lenders for a very long time. And it's really encouraging with some of the technology and tools available to dealers today and to marketers today, that dealers can really now head in that direction with their CRM data, right? And consider it a portfolio, if you will. And so I think the data that is now available to help them finally manage and optimize their portfolios, really creating a personalized brand experience for their consumers and just kind of nurturing that lifetime value of their customers is really a big shift in the industry, and one we're very excited about, and using the data that we have, marketers can really help their dealers achieve that.
You know, one of the things that I just started writing about on LinkedIn is data hygiene observations. And what dealers need to understand is that, you know, after the initial, say, data hygiene cleanse of your DMS data before you load it up into your data lake or into your CDP, every day something changes on some record in your customer profile. And dealers are going to have to think about trusted partners with robust APIs that can do exactly what Deanna and Angelica have been talking about, is real-time data updates, real-time data decisioning. For example, you go to send out an email of people who are in equity, and you have, you know, a dozen people drop out because of undeliverable email addresses. Being able to ping Equifax and say, hey, do you have another email address for this family? Or mails being returned. Yes, you could do NCOA, or maybe you just ping into Equifax and say, hey, do you have a new mover record here? Oftentimes, dealers may know or may not know that as they try to do customer match lists on Google or Facebook, they may have a 60% match rate. Yes, they may send their data out to be appended, but the next time they run the same list, they're going to have to do it again. Imagine the power of partnerships where additional email addresses, additional phone numbers, anything that impacts your ability to retain, as Angelica said, those customers, to increase the LTV. Who is your go-to partner that you can ping through an API, update the data, reactivate that customer, do a better reach out? These are concepts that have never really been talked about because we didn't have a first-party data management strategy. And that's why I'm so excited to see what Equifax is doing to, well, empower dealers with data. And as it was mentioned, you know, once you license certain data, those additional data elements become your first party data that can be used through direct mail, through email, through your outbound marketing, OTT. It's going to be a new age where dealers realize that managing the first party data isn't easy, but the benefits financially to the company, well, are beyond anyone's real imagination. We never had the ability to see it before. Angelica, you've been leading the automotive charge at Equifax. So you hear of OEM case studies, you hear of case studies, success stories outside of automotive. For dealers who are just beginning to get serious about managing the first party data, what's one word of encouragement you'd like to give them on how your company can help them build those LTV scores, build those retention goals to something that gives them a distinct competitive edge?
So I don't know if I have one word, but yeah, I mean, I think, hey, listen, so understanding the identity of consumers has never been more important, right? I mean, you have to have confidence you're making relevant offers to the right customer, and that's critical. And consumers expect that level of personalization. And so you just have to start somewhere, start with a foundation of data, enhance your graph, and focus on enriching your first party data with unique data that is precise, and insightful, and is going to give consumers the experience they expect.
Deanna, same question. For the dealer groups or agencies like myself that are helping dealer groups build out their customer data strategy using a CDP or a data lake, what's one word of advice, encouragement that you would give them? And also, confidence to partner with your team on solving their data gaps to sell more cars in a digital age.
Yeah. I would just add into same as what Angelica shared there. And from a results perspective, we could definitely sit down with them and let them see some of the things we've been able to achieve with other partners. For example, we've been able to, with some of the data that we have, we were helping one particular partner beat out their KPIs by over 75%. People being able to achieve a cost per acquisition on a vehicle that was less than $200. Again, being able to leverage the kind of the multi-channel email and programmatic retouch, digital touch, where in some instances you can see between a 1 and a 4x increase in conversion. So it's worth the effort to the dealer, and we would love to engage with them and the partners that serve them to see where this data can really make results. It can improve their business results. It will help their staff and resource understand the efficiency and the growth that this data can bring to them. So we'd love to have that conversation.
Well, ladies, I'm so glad that we took time out of our busy schedules just to sit down and make one point very, very clear, is that as dealers realize that in order to reach their profitability and sustain that profitability, they're going to have to treat their customers differently. They're going to have to value their first-party data. They're going to have tools to manage each customer record, and they have to find partners who bring unique data sets into their business to have better outreach, better personalized offers, and proactive outreach, especially as their customers move through different life events. Angelica, if there was a dealer or a marketing agency listening to today's podcast that would like to know more on what a data partnership would look like, what's the best website to go to, or subsection on your website, or email address for automotive specific inquiries?
I would say just reach out to me. My first name, last name, Angelica, Angelica, .Jeffreys, Jeffreys, at Equifax.com. I have the most extensive, my team is just wonderful, and we are very interested in education, informing, helping however we can in this space.
Well, I know you have an excellent team, and well, it's always been a pleasure to help solve dealer problems with the Equifax data team. And for dealers, if this is the first time you're listening to one of our podcasts, you should know that this is one in a series of conversations leading up to the Modern Retailing Conference in Palm Beach, Florida, November 12th, 13th, and 14th. And this is an advanced conference for people who are looking to leverage their first-party data, to elevate the customer experience, to work on retention and conquest strategies, to sell more cars in a digital age by doing things boldly that other people can only imagine, because we're bringing the top executives, the top technologies, and the best dealer group leaders to collaborate on what the future of automotive retailing looks like. So if you're interested in attending the conference, go to modernretailingconference.com, also known as MRC. And if you haven't listened to other interviews in our podcast series in general, you should just go to your favorite podcast channel and search for the Brian Pash Podcast, and you'll see there's dozens of interviews with industry leaders. Deanna, I'm going to let you have the closing word. What's one of the things that you're most excited about in a first-party data-centric world, if you looked out in 2024, that would excite the marketing professionals and the dealers listening on today's podcast?
Oh gosh, there's so much I'm excited about, Brian. It's kind of hard to put me in a bucket on that, but I will tell you, looking ahead to 2024, I am super pumped about working with some of these partnerships and being able to empower dealers that are really trying to create that experience that I know I want, you want, Angelica, and everybody wants as it relates to coming in and evaluating and buying a car, right? So we want that experience to be felt online and offline and just seamless and transition. And we've got the data to help you, make that happen. So I'm excited about that from a dealer standpoint, and the advertisers and the marketers that are supporting them and getting there and driving leads in the funnel and driving people to the showroom floor. So again, looking forward to attending MRC and hoping to meet with some of those groups while we're there, because Angelica and I are going to be there.
Well, you hit the nail on the head. Every dealer's looking for more leads, more opportunities to fill their showroom, and a data-driven strategy based on real data, not model data, not survey data, is going to be key in a differentiated outcome for your marketing investments. I want to thank everyone for listening in today, and don't forget to listen to all of the interviews on this series as we lead up to the Modern Retailing Conference. Thank you for your time, ladies. Thank you for your input, and I'll catch you next time on another podcast interview.